that part on the exam because that's really tricky. But you're absolutely right in noticing here that at the optimum here, marginal cost is below whatever average cost is here. Shut down, right? You wouldn't operate there. So it's a really good question. Let me add 2 more sentences here, right? So how would we get the firm to produce out there? How do you get firms that voluntarily won't do it to produce somewhere, some more output? Yeah, that was a choir of the right answer. Beautiful, right? So you would subsidize them to produce out there. Are subsidies free to society? No, right? So what you would have to evaluate is a comparison of whatever the firm does here by itself versus whatever the welfare is from subsidizing out here, because that's the only way to get the firm to produce out here and it actually producing output, right? So the counterfactual we've got in mind here right now, which is the one that I say that actually maximizes welfare, is if you said firm, that's where I want you to produce, they would never do that, right? So the only way to get them there is to either threaten them, enforce them to, or impose a subsidy, and that's a comparison I'm not going to make you do, but that would be the right comparison. Really good question. Yeah. I love it. Good questions. Is this long run or short run? Yeah, you can do it in either scenario, right? So I always think of this as a long run problem, but you could draw this in the short run too and really confuse you guys. But let's for the rest of this class think of this as sort of a long run equilibrium where there's no difference between average total and average variable cost, because that would make it really tricky. But do you see, you're sort of scratching the surface now. We're relaxing simple issues, and what's the counterfactual here, and would we actually ever observe this counterfactual? And if we want people to get there, how do we get them there in reality? So you can do this in 50,000 different settings, and it's a really tricky problem. Careers are filled with this stuff. I don't know so any more follow-up questions to this monopoly stuff? Yes.
I have a question on monopolies.
We're going to answer your question, but yeah.
So I know that the degree of market power a monopolist has depends on price elasticity. One of the true false questions, the old line without the answer key, is the degree of market power an unregulated monopolist can exercise depends on the income elasticity of demand. And I think it's true, but I'm not sure.
That's a bad question, but I wrote it. So I sometimes when I want you to say false, I say stuff like that. So the answer to that is false, right? So we didn't in this class make a big deal about how to measure market power, other than actually saying that it relates. The degree of markup, how much you can charge above price here, above marginal cost, depends on the elasticity of demand. There's a formula that shows you that directly relates the Lerner index to the price elasticity of demand. So market power depends on the price elasticity of demand. If you kept on going, you can actually show that for certain commodities, the price elasticity of demand varies across different income groups. So price elasticity of demand could be different across income groups. So you should, it's a bad question. But the answer I was going for here is the Lerner index depends on the price elasticity of demand here, right? That's a clean answerable question, and the answer to that should be true, right? Or the degree of market power depends on the price elasticity of demand. This income thing, that's a bad question. So that answered your question not satisfactorily, because now you're terrified of further bad questions on your exam, but I'm getting better over time, I think, at asking better questions. All right, now you're next. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I will show you. So let's repeat that question quickly through the microphone. Max, you made a big deal about the monopolist never operates in the inelastic portion of a demand curve, and then you're drawing me a monopolist with an inelastic demand curve. What's up, right? So what I'm saying here is, let me draw you 2 demand curves, all right? We agree that this one's price inelastic, and I think we agree that this one's price elastic, right? So inelastic and elastic. So let's draw the marginal revenue curves that go with it. Marginal revenue curve has halfway between the origin and where the demand intersects the x-axis, right? So if I go up here, and if I go straight up here, I know that the price elasticity of demand in absolute value here is exactly equal to 1, right? So halfway, at the quantity halfway between the origin and where the demand curve intersects the x-axis, the demand is exactly unitarily elastic. To the left here, it's relatively elastic. And here, it's relatively inelastic. Here, relatively elastic. Here, relatively inelastic. Right? So both an inelastic and an elastic demand curves have portions that are relatively inelastic and relatively elastic. Right? So here, the absolute value of the elasticity is greater than 1. Here, the absolute value of the elasticity is less than 1. Here, the absolute value of the elasticity is greater than 1. Here, less than 1. Right? So all I'm saying in that statement that I quoted on the exam for this demand curve, the monopolist will produce somewhere here. For this demand curve, the monopolist will produce somewhere here. Because the quantities that are greater than the blue dashed line right here, marginal revenue is negative. That means you're producing more output. The cost to inputs that you have to pay for